Hey basketball coaches, players, and fans, today I am going to be breaking down Paul George and his basketball shooting form. If you are a basketball player looking to shoot the basketball better, this is definitely a video that you could take some pointers from and be able to incorporate that into your game. Let's get down to the clipboard. Let's check out Paul George and his shooting form. From here, what we are going to be looking at first is his feet. Now, they are hiding behind this watermark, which is fantastic, but as we can see, starting from his feet, his right foot is in front of his left, which again is going to allow you to have a nice straight shot. And of course, that's going to be able to then move up into your knees. Now, this is something that a lot of players do, and that is have their knees come together slightly when they are bending to go into their shots. Some players like that. Personally, I find that it does, at least at the younger age group, mess up a lot of players' shots because they're trying to get more power out of their legs, and sometimes with this type of bend on their knees, they're not able to get as much power as they can, but that does depend on player. Now from there, when he goes in for a shot, his shoulders line up with his knees, which pretty well line up with his toes, which is what you're looking for to have a power behind your shot. Now when he goes up for his shot from his shooting pocket, he doesn't bend his elbow all that much, and he only really bends his shoulder. And this is something that you're going to find with a lot of great shooters in the NBA, because you really want to try and cut down on how much movement you have in your shot. The least amount of movement, the higher percentage your shot is going to have. Now, from there, his shoulder looks to be in line with his elbow, but we're going to be looking at a different angle anyways, and we'll be able to confirm that. But next, what we are going to be really looking at is how he shoots that ball, and what we see is his arm doesn't bend straight up like this, where a lot of players will, to have a quicker release. He does tend to have a little bit slower of a release, and we've seen that this year in the playoffs, where he didn't shoot at such a high percentage because of many teams running him off of the three-point line. Even though a couple of his shots were open threes, he did have a lot that were rushed, which then messes up his shot for the rest of the game, especially if you run a player off the line 3 or 4 times in a row. And from there, his ball, because his arm has such a high bend or very big bend to it, goes in front, if not over top of his eyes. Now, some players do shoot like that, and some players do prefer to shoot like that, so I'm not about to change that. There's a few things that I don't change with players because they get more power out of their shooting form in certain ways. So for me, I shoot straight up like this as much as I can, and because of that, I can have a quick release. I'm not generally shooting NBA range threes, but I still can with my shooting form. But with him, with Paul George, he does have that bend in his arm, which is something that he probably got from when he was a younger player, and this does give you more power on your shot. It doesn't affect your consistency of shooting. It doesn't affect your aim. As long as your elbow is in line, you are pretty well all set for your upper body. Something we do see as well is his left shoulder is a bit back, which could be concerning for some players, and this may have now also affected his shot in this year's playoffs, because from the scenes that I have seen, his shoulder was even more pronounced back, which is a possibility as to why his shot was messed up. The next thing we look at is his hips, and his hips are slightly back as well. However, some players don't have the ability to go square towards the basket, so I'm not all that concerned. I would be really concerned if I seen the shoulder continue or starting to go back farther, and that's when I would start correcting it, because at that point, if your body is facing too far that way, your shot's going to want to go that way. And as we've seen in this year's playoffs, his shot did tend to go quite left quite often. So that is something that I would definitely be looking at if I was him. But again, he does probably have a lot of personal trainers who are probably saying the same thing to him. So now from this angle, as we can see, he is trying to be a little bit more square towards the basket, but he is still slightly bending back on that left side, which again is okay for a little bit, but as soon as you start getting past a certain point, it starts hindering the shot. We do see those knees coming together, which for younger players, sometimes they do find more power in it while others don't. The reason why younger players may find more power in the knees coming together is because the quads in your legs, the front of your legs, will be more powerful on the outside than the inside, because that's how you train when you do squats and things like that. And because of that, and especially when you start doing defensive slides and things, your outside of your legs, because there's two parts of that muscle, the outside and the inside, and if the outside is more powerful, then that just means that this is going to be pronounced even more. Now, something that I do notice right now is the foot is not lined up with the basket, which is something that could be concerning, because now he's not going to have necessarily a straight shot, because everything on this side needs to be in line with the basket. Your foot, your knee, also your shoulder to elbow need to be in line to the basket. And this is actually a really great angle. So from here, what we have is something that looks to be roughly in line. Now, if I was to really slow this down, I haven't seen, let's say I haven't seen this shot be made or missed yet, I would actually say that this shot may go off the left side of the rim. Whether it go in or bounce out, it's going to probably hit the left side of the rim. And as we can see, he actually has the ball release on his pointer finger and his middle finger, which is really going to be pronouncing that ball towards the left side. And let's see what happens. He hits that left side of the rim and it bounces in. So what does that tell me? So by having his legs, now when he does jump, the foot does straighten out, which is good. And depending on how this angle was taken, this may be straight towards the basket. And if that's the case, which is probably the case, we're seeing that ball go off those two fingers, which is why we see it bounce off the left side of the rim and then go in. So what we can take from here is, with this shooting form, even though it's a really good shooting form and he's a really good shooting player, by having everything really focusing towards that left side, what's going to happen is if he starts having a bad shooting game, it's going to pronounce even more towards that left side. And then near the end, he's going to try and correct it by trying to push the ball right, which is why we started seeing him hit the side of the backboard near the end of that last game 7. So I'm not all that surprised with his shooting woes in the playoffs. However, at the same time, there's a few things that you can do as a player that can fix, not necessarily fix, but make your shot just a bit more consistent. Now, if your shot or your shooting form tends to have your body pointing left of the rim, on your hand when you're shooting it, have the ball go off your middle and your ring finger. This is the easiest thing for a player to fix. If you find that your shot consistently goes towards the left side of the rim, and then if you record your shot and you see that your body is slightly turned left of the rim, what that tells you is, now if you could change your shooting form, and to change that takes a while, to change your shooting form from going like this, angled away from the rim, to turn to the rim, get that elbow in and shoot. That takes a long time. That's something that can take up to a year to change, because your body has muscle memory, and from there, it's really trying to always force you to where you're used to going. The smallest thing that you can change to fix this is by having that ball go off that ring and middle finger both at the same time, by still having your body angled, will allow you to be able to have a straighter shot majority of the time. And then when you're in the off season, you can start training your body to straighten out towards the basket when you're not in game and when you're not needing to play against and have a high percentage shot. Because in the off season, you could have 3 to 4 months off, and that's a great amount of time to really work on your shot if you work on it every single day. Now, something that we see Chris Boucher from the Raptors do, and it's actually a great shooting. It's amazing how he went from an okay shooter to an even better shooter, because his body is actually just a bit too square, and his left shoulder tends to come out on the left side to shoot that ball. And he does really project that shot like this. Now, what the Raptors have done ever since he became a Raptor is he has sort of kind of straightened out towards the basket, but his right arm, they've made his right arm go out farther, which compensates for his left side being forward. There's a few things that you can see in shooting forms that really make you curious on how you can shoot better yourself. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, hit that like button and subscribe, and I will see you guys again next time.